Good morning, Håkan Nilsson of Sinovate International. I will try to share from two avenues of experiences. First, I spent some 23 years as CIO for global forwarders, including Jodis, where we were through the process of selecting Cargowise, and then I was responsible for deploying it in 50 plus countries on all continents, some 5,000 users back then. Since 5 years, I'm running my own consultancy firm, helping the global logistics industry to make the right choices in terms of systems and processes. And I have a partner network helping our customers to successfully execute on those choices. And here you see a number of these customers. So interestingly, these are customers from a workforce of 28 people up to 28,000. As the example of DHL Global Forwarding. And they also represent basically all three phases. Some of them are in the software selection phase. Others are in a global deployment phase, global deployment of Cargowise. And finally, there are also a few that are very, very mature in their usage of Cargowise, DSV perhaps being one example of that. The few forwarders that actually deliver superior results are all perceived as value-added partners, as opposed to just a middleman, more delivering added cost. And that's also truly where technology comes in, because in order to be a value-added partner and deliver a superior level of services, you need to base that on rather advanced technology. So that's really where the driver of margin erosion, those that are not able to keep up with technology and are just deemed as middlemen. The area of quality, Richard mentioned that the industry is really prone to errors. So if you have a system that is allowing you to make errors, that will severely affect your productivity. It will affect the value you deliver to the customer. And so I think a system that can ensure quality, particularly on a global basis, through this single file concept where you have one and the same truth, and it's just a natural handshake from export and import rather than rekeying of a lot of information. We made a rather thorough exercise. We looked at 16 potential vendors, brought it down to a shorter list of 6, have had a number of webinars, and we spent a lot of face time with 4 of them, actually executing our shipments end to end in 2-day sessions with 4 different vendors before arriving at the choice of Cargowise. And we looked at things from 3 dimensions, obviously functionality, but also technology viability, and thirdly, the DNA of the company. When you're making these choices, you're embarking in a partnership 15, 20 years at least into the future. So it's very important that you pick something that is not just best today, but is positioned for continuous improvement so you can continue to thrive with the system, which of course is the difficult part, to foresee the vendor's abilities for future development, but that's the most important element. Yeah. With the companies I'm now advising, of course, with the span of companies, it's across all modules. Back at Jodis, we did not use the accounting module. We had an external accounting module, which is pretty common with bigger corporations where perhaps Cargowise is only deployed in one division. But it is actually a big minus. There is enormous power of using the full portfolio of Cargowise, and the whole is certainly much more than the sum of the parts. So in that case, when my recommendation to customers, if at all possible, take the whole package, integrated modules beats interfaced modules 7 days a week.
So what's the rollout with something like that? Is that a gradual across countries?
Well, obviously,
when
the power with a single file system is that you derive so many benefits on the import side. So it's important to get the big exporting countries in early so that you get a lot of volumes to benefit on the import side. So we made a big priority in Asia, getting China quickly in, and we had 5 rollout teams, 2 in APAC, 2 in Europe, and 1 for Americas, and a rather speedy delivery. Also, the benefits are not linear. There is a networking effect, so many of the benefits will come towards the end of a global deployment. It's very important to get the big export countries in. And we had, during our first rollout year in APAC, a 7% productivity improvement, which is quite impressive because it's mainly export, and it was during the deployment phase. Benefits are bigger than on the import end.
So the benefits on the import because you're capturing the origin data?
Absolutely. You're sharing the one and the same data. If I oversimplify, mainly 2 types of competitors, those that are functionality rich, highly specialized, but purely local. In many cases, lucrative functionality, but incapable to scale, and not really something for a global operator. And then there are a couple of global competitors. I think the key difference is the industry know-how. That Cargowise or WiseTech is far superior to many of these global competitors that are global in nature, but actually not deep enough in the industry. That's the big difference. If you're purely a local forwarder in a country where there exists a specialized software vendor, and that's a little bit back to the acquisition story Richard painted here, that in many countries it is virtually impossible to get access to those customers unless you have proximity. You're there. Then we should also remember that if we're looking at the top global forwarders, just go back a few years, the biggest penetration was actually not a competitor, it was the huge internal IT team. That was still true for DHL, or if you go to Kina, they actually insourced that by buying a software vendor. And that battle is progressively being won now by WiseTech. I mean, years ago it was very difficult just to enter because you were up against the internal IT department. And finally, there are some global companies like SAP that are having some advantages in a board discussion from their brand name. And you could see that with previously. I'm pretty sure that it had to take a failure with one of the giants for that one to consider an alternative. And you still see SAP with Panalpina, for instance. So I think there is a growing maturity in the boardroom that WiseTech is a capable provider also for these giants, obviously with a breakthrough with DHL. But yeah. So some of the customers has made impressive improvement, particularly if the starting point, when at Jodis we were operating 10 different systems. So it was a move from 10 to 1 system. It was a move from 30 databases to 1 single file database. And then we were talking productivity improvements in the range of 20%. Some of my customers today, smaller forwarders that are on advanced system, the improvement has been less. And definitely there are some companies that, and I think Richard was also onto it, that it's a 2-stage phase. One is picking a better system, but then is making the most of that system. So many of the customers that are on Cargowise has made major improvement, but there is still a very big potential remaining. And I would pick, out of those that I have insights, I would pick DSV as being most mature in their usage. And you can see that if you're looking also at the financial figures.